If you want to get to know an opening without investing too much of your time in memorizing boring lines and variations, forget about buying books or online courses. Because what you need is a meaningful connection between your opening and the middle game plan. To know what you do and why you do in the opening and how that affects your game on move 10, 15 or 20. Now the game Mattison versus Nimzowitsch, with my commentary and your slight involvement at a certain point, is going to be enough for you to create a bridge towards understanding of the Nimzo-Indian defense. First, Nimzowitsch creates a long-lasting defect in the enemy camp, fully aware of the drawbacks. Basically, 2 opening moves are invested only to give away his bishop for a knight, at the same time improving the white center. But thanks to those changes, from that moment onwards it becomes clear what is the best place for each of their pieces, and what pawn formation they should create. First, we need to underline that we need space. Means a pawn, one of those in the center, must advance to the 5th rank. But which one exactly? Nimzowitsch continues with the move d6.
And why not d5?
Now pay attention, this is a common positional mistake. We do not want to allow white to undouble. And the other reason is related with our light square bishop. It won't be happy with us placing pawns on the squares of its color, blocking it. This opening has been played a long time before Nimzowitsch, but the idea of placing pawns on the dark squares after trading the dark square bishop is the reason this opening is named after him. And the move d6 is basically saying next is either e5 or c5, and my remaining bishop is going to be a good piece. Queen c2 is announcing e4, and we had queen e7 supporting e5. White wants to prevent it, playing bishop a3. Another idea behind this move is undoubling the pawns by advancing c4, c5. However, it fails due to black's another typical pawn advance, c7, c5. And now the double pawns are going
nowhere.
Nimzowitsch is known for the theory that a weakness should be immobilized first and then attacked.
It won't be able to run away.
This move is the first step towards putting pressure on the c4 pawn, the closer of those 2 on the c file. At the same time, the a3 bishop loses its purpose. Now you may be confused by this concept of a weak pawn.
What is it?
And what qualifies the c4 as such? I'd like to invite those of you who know the definition of a weak pawn to write it down in the comment section. Also, those interested in exploring the theme, there is a video on this channel you can check, and the link is in the description. For now, we'll mark the c4 pawn as weak, since there is no pawn of white that can defend it ever again. White's only solution is to get rid of it by advancing to c5, exchanging it for one of black pawns. As we could see, by playing c7, c5, black
stops it.
Now next thing black wants to do is put more and more pressure on the weak pawn, going for the following setup. And this is typical whenever playing against the double c-pawns in the Nimzo-Indian. b6, bishop a6, knight c6 to a5, and rook c8, exerting such pressure on c4 that white is forced to play passively and most likely push d5, in which case their central pawns lose their flexibility. Now white assumed that black is going to fianchetto their bishop on b7 and had an idea to get ahead of the opponent, so we had a dubious g3 move. If one would take into account the main weakness of white, that one would never even think about
moving the bishop to another diagonal.
b6, bishop g2, bishop b7. Now black prefers bishop a6, of course, but due to the current events on the h1, a8 diagonal, the action against the c4 pawn has to be postponed. Castles and knight h4. Realizing the damage is done to the c4 pawn by fianchettoing, Mattison now wants to trade the bishops and get the knight to g2, then to e3 and defend the c4 weakness. Strange thing is, why would you defend in such a way when there was a simple move like knight d2? Now Nimzowitsch did take on g2, while I prefer knight c6. The idea is knight a5 with an attack on c4. But this way black does not help white regroup the badly placed knight on h4. It may look like Nimzowitsch is facing an amateur, especially after king takes g2. The knight, this way, stays out of the game and c4 pawn is about to be put under tremendous pressure. White was not aware of the problem emerging on c4, thinking only of how to create an attack of their own, in a form of e4, f4, in which case the knight on h4 may be of some use. Now you can pause and try to guess what's next for black here. Remember, the plan is to put pressure on c4, since it's basically the best target. It doesn't go anywhere.
And it is hard for white to defend it.
We can easily bring the knight to a5 via c6, and if we still have the bishop, it would join the attack via a6. Here, however, we have another possibility thanks to the absence of the bishop. And that's queen b7. The queen goes to a6
instead of the bishop.
White defends with the queen, black plays knight c6, going to a5 on the next move. And believe it or not, according to Stockfish, black is already winning by more than 3 points. Now let's not overlook that black is also attacking d4, so Mattison continues with rook fd1, defending the pawn. Now knight a5 and queen b5. To be completely honest, for me, this would be the most difficult decision to make as black. We attacked the weakness, we did everything we could, and now it looks like we should allow the pawn to move to b5, in case we trade the queens, of course.
Is that a good decision to make?
If it's not, we may lose everything we have built so far. The thing is, one type of positional advantage, such as pawn weakness, may change into another as the game goes, and if everything was done well, usually the change increases our advantage. Now in this case, the weak c4 pawn transposes into the weak square, allowing black to cement the knight almost into the center of the board, leading a quick and decisive attack. Again, you can pause and try to guess what's next for black. White c3 pawn is backward and black knight on c4 is completely dominating the board, but there is still something to do. A beautiful way to create another weakness in the white's camp, along with the conditions for both the black rooks to attack.
And that move is
a6. Opening of the a file makes the isolated a2 pawn a serious weakness for the two black rooks. Now white took on c5, but that doesn't change anything. B takes c, knight to g2, and knight e5, centralizing the second knight and reminding the opponent that they have also
a weakness on c3.
After rook a8, we can see a beautiful picture on the board. White is completely lost. They played e4 and resigned after knight e5. If the game continued, the rook would go to d1, knight takes c3 would force rook f1, and black would collect almost all of white's pawns. Practically, white loses without playing a single active move, without starting any kind of plan, simply because they couldn't figure out black's strategy, which actually started early in the game, already on move 3 and 4. Well, now you may play your first Nimzo-Indian, and feel free to submit it afterwards in the comments. Looking forward to it, and if you think this was helpful, share the video, like and subscribe for more.